Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
You have made it to What's the Plan? We will get started in a little bit, but let us know. Ann Arbor, John with Ann Arbor is straight out of the gate. First here. Welcome, John. Let us know where you're coming from. If you're part of an Indivisible group, let us know that too. We've got a lot to cover, so we might try to move forward as fast as possible. But Leah, call out who you're saying.
Oh, hello, hello. Okay, I see Honolulu, Minneapolis, Baltimore, Fremont, California, Indivisible, Sikkim. Oh goodness, it's going so fast. Chicago, Flagstaff, Pittsburgh,
We got about
Utah,
5,000 people on. And sorry for the
Pueblo.
background that looks like we're not at our normal place, which has Leah's beautiful book background. So that's why you're seeing this kind of like faded background. But hopefully you can hear us both because we brought our mics. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Atlanta. We've got Santa Barbara. I've seen a couple of folks in Minnesota and Minneapolis area. Obviously, we're holding y'all in our hearts, and we're going to talk a lot about
Yeah.
what y'all are dealing with right now. Top of the list, we'll get to as soon as we can. We got Detroit, we got Annapolis, we've got Rockville, we've got San Ramon, California, Sierra City, California, Lexington, Massachusetts. People are streaming in and streaming in. Traverse City, Indivisible, welcome. Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, Sarasota, Florida, Madison,
Madison,
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, Caledonia, New York, Newark, Delaware, Birmingham, Alabama,
People are streaming in
Lancaster, Pennsylvania,
from all over.
Kansas City.
We've got an absolute packed agenda, y'all. So I do think should we jump to
Let's
it?
do it.
Okay, we're gonna hop to it, everybody. Um, Welcome, everybody. It is great to be here for our second What's the Plan of the Year. It feels like it's been a year or so since our last What's the Plan of the Year, which was last week. A lot is happening very quickly, which is what happens when an authoritarian feels like he is in danger of losing power. They lash out. First, they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they win, or then you win. We are firmly, and then they fight with you,
Then
period,
they
of
fight you.
this.
Yep.
And so take that as a compliment, as cold comfort as that might be, y'all. It is a sign that we are doing the right thing and we are going to win. Leah, who are we?
Well, hello everyone. You are joining What's the Plan? This is going to be mostly Q&A live with the Indivisible Movement. We will have a quick opening set of announcements and some reflections, but the rest of the conversation is just going to be Q&A. You can put your questions in the Q&A box in the bottom or the chat box in the bottom of the toolbar. We'll be taking them mostly from the top, so upvote the questions that you want to go ahead or you want to see us answer.
And who are we?
Who are we? Oh my goodness, I forgot.
For people who are brand new, welcome.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Leah,
I'm Ezra,
and we're the co-executive directors of Indivisible.
and we are here to talk about how we fight for our democracy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And the way that we fight for our democracy, our theory, Indivisible's theory, is we don't do it with me and Leah. Look, we're happy to be talking with y'all. We're happy to be having this discussion, but we're not the leaders of this movement. Y'all know this. The leaders of this movement are Indivisible group leaders who are owning and operating and recruiting and strategizing and executing on plans for their own Indivisible group. That's how we build and wield power in this country. By power, I mean the ability to get someone or some fascist institution to do something they would not otherwise do. That's how we build and wield power together on the ground, which means I get to welcome a ton of brand new indivisible groups. There has been, can I just say, y'all, a surge of new activity. We say every single week, I'm saying, oh my gosh, there are a lot of groups. This week, we've had more indivisible groups formed since I think any time in the last 4 or so months. There's been a surge of new people. I guess the new year brought new interest in organizing locally, and people are forming groups. So please give a warm indivisible welcome. I picked out of a hat 10 new indivisible groups from around the country. Let them know they belong here. Let them know that they are joining a welcoming community. We're rolling out the red carpet for y'all. Cassandra with Talladega County Indivisible in Sylacauga, Alabama. Mary with Indivisible Orange in Orange, California. Welcome, welcome. Candace with Indivisible Copperleaf in Aurora, Colorado. Ben from Tybee Island. Tibby Island? I think it's Tibby Island. Georgia. Looking to you, Leah.
Hey,
She's guessing
your
yes.
guess is as good as
Okay, great. It's been a wild week, y'all. Normally I would look up all these and be able to pronounce. Okay, I did look up where Tibby Island was though. Uh, uh, Jeannie with Indie Resistance in Indianapolis, Indiana. We've got Cody from Indivisible Derby City, Louisville, Kentucky. Kalia with Witnesses on Wheels, St. Paul, Minnesota. I love that name of their group. Witnesses on
witnesses
Wheels,
on
y'all.
wheels.
I love that for St. Paul, Minnesota. Welcome. Oh, it's Tybee Island. Okay, thank you for the correction. I appreciate it. Tybee Island, welcome. Tybee Island Indivisible. We've got Susie from Indivisible Hamilton in Hamilton, Ohio. Katie, registered Indivisible Reed Sport in Reed Sport, Oregon. And rounding us out, we've got Michelle in Indivisible Kent, Washington. Y'all, I love going through the new Indivisible groups over the last week because there's this sense of a beating heart of a movement that continues to grow, that continues to develop our capacity to push back against the authoritarians that are trying to take over. This is how we win, y'all. This is how we win. We continue to welcome in new leaders and build up the leadership and the membership of these groups so that we're able to organize in blue states, red states, purple states, city centers, urban areas, rural areas. That's the key. That's the key. That's why the authoritarians have not been able to tighten their grip on power as much as they would have liked, and that's ultimately how we're going to be able to defeat them going forward. Quick programming announcement that I think is kind of exciting, and I hope y'all are excited about it too. This isn't going to change y'all's lives too much because we're going to continue coming here every single Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. But I'm excited to announce, and it's the official announcement isn't until tomorrow, so y'all get a sneak peek, view of this. We are going to be releasing the What's the Plan, these weekly What's the Plan calls. They're going to be released as a podcast starting next week. So we've been talking about this in the past. How can we get this out to more people? We don't want to change the content. We cherish these spaces. We want these to be real discussions of movement leaders figuring out how we do stuff together. So that's not changing. Not changing at all. We're not charging anybody anything to put these out. But we've been in conversation with a few different folks, and we started talking with Limonada Media. And they're a really cool, award-winning, independent podcast network, and they have agreed to work with us and start releasing What's the Plan as a podcast every single Friday. And they're very cool. They do cool shows. So Wiser Than Me, if y'all have listened to it, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Don't Listen to Us, which is Mandy Patinkin and Catherine Grody. Sarah Silverman's on there. Choice Words with Samantha Bee, Hassan Minaj. There's just like a lot of cool folks who are doing it. And now Indivisible and What's the Plan will be there too. As I've mentioned, format's not changing, y'all. Every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to be part of the discussion, you still got to join the Zoom. That's how you can ask questions, vote on questions, have us actually have a discussion with you. So this space is sacred. We're not changing it at all. There are also, to be clear, no corporate sponsors. We're not selling underwear or insurance or whatever else. That was part of the agreement and one of the reasons why we went with Limonada. We have full editorial control and we're not selling ads or anything. So don't worry about that. Nobody's making any, like, we're not making any money on this. Leah is and I am, and I'm not. Indivisible is. And this is simply an effort to get more people to understand how they can plug in. I know, everybody here likes to join every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's awesome. I like to do that too. Many people who we want to be part of this fight simply can't for one reason or another, but they might listen to a podcast on a Friday morning that we release. So that's cool. I think it's a cool thing. I think it's going to get a lot more people in. Hopefully it's successful, and we'll try to do some fun experimental stuff like having guests on maybe once a month or so to dig into big issues like we've done before with, for instance, Erica Chenoweth recently, and Afton Bain even more recently. So starting next Friday, new podcast coming out. Please help us spread the word, send it around. Maybe people will join up and be part of this discussion going forward. Okay, with that out of the way, Leah, let's talk about what's going on this week. Do you want to recap what we've been seeing on the ground in Minnesota and beyond?
Well, first of all, I want to open with just a deep appreciation for everyone who was out at an Ice for Good or Ice Out for Good event over the weekend. We put out this call on Thursday night last week, and literally within 24 hours, thousands of over 1,000 events were registered.
1,200.
Well, 1,200 ultimately. I was trying within.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I stepped on your line. I'm sorry.
Yes, which is an extraordinary testament to how deeply this horrific tragedy has shaken people and has led people to feel the need to come together in community and to push for action. People around the country, this is, you get these moments sometimes where a horrific act of violence reaches beyond the people who are already paying attention and starts to land with folks who maybe weren't with us before, maybe weren't paying attention before. And it is this crucial moment where we need to honor the person, the loss of Renee Good, and also we also need to like lift up what she stood for and collectively help the people who are not with us on a day-to-day basis make sense of that moment. And so I'm incredibly proud and appreciative of everyone who answered that call, everyone who showed up, everyone who has been part of the broader turning of the tide against ICE in the public opinion, or in public opinion, and we are seeing that in the polls right now. Now, I don't want to mince words. What is happening in Minnesota right now is horrific. It is an invasion. Thousands of ICE and CBP officers have been deployed to a city that is crystal clear that they are not welcome. They murdered Renee Good. They shot a man in the leg last night. They have been violently detaining people and suppressing dissent. They are lurking outside of schools and daycares so they can catch parents. As a parent, I just every time I think about that, I think about how absolutely obscene that is. Um, they're blatantly racially profiling the residents of the city. It is horrifying. This is Trump brutalizing an American city and traumatizing its residents for his own malevolent political purposes. And also, and I know I see you in the chat, I want to name people are responding. Minnesotans are standing up for each other. They are pushing back. They are protecting their neighbors. Parents are organizing to protect their fellow families during school and daycare drop-offs. Communities are out patrolling, watching and recording everything that ICE does to document their crimes. Neighbors are protecting each other. If you are in Minnesota and you are not already involved, please make sure to plug in ASAP, ensure you know your rights, ensure that you are actively engaged with the local networks that have sprung up to help help in this moment. If you are outside of Minnesota, I think we all just need to take our inspiration and take our marching orders from those who are putting everything on the line to protect their communities. This is the time to push our elected officials in solidarity with those under threat. Am I
I'm trying to see if you can. Okay.
okay?
I'm giving Leah the mic to hold. Let's see if that does better.
All
I'm seeing
right.
y'all's chat.
Okay. This is the time to push our elected officials in solidarity because fundamentally, while this is happening in Minnesota, there is an incredibly important active national debate about what we do about DHS funding. And Ezra, I'm going to ask you to take it from there.
Yeah, so right after this, I mean, historic. It is historic. The level of outrage, the breadth of the outrage demonstrated by folks in the span of 48 hours. I mean, 1,200 events in 48 hours is bonkers, y'all. We built for hands off in April of last year for what, 6 weeks, Leah, to
Yeah.
get to 1,300 events. 48 hours to have 1,200 events. If it's not already, it will be on the list of the 10 largest protests in American history. You'll see it on there. Uh, then this week, so on Tuesday, time has no meaning, but on Tuesday, is that right, Leah? Yes. On Tuesday, we joined with a few different partners and a lot of members of Congress in front of CBP headquarters in Washington, D.C. And the reason why we did that was our goal for the weekend protest was not just to express outrage, y'all. That was not the goal. The goal was to get action. It is our job as Americans to be outraged. It is elected officials' job to act. And so, going from the weekend of action, we then held a DC based event with senators and representatives to push for specific action. And the specific action I want to focus on here to nerd out a little bit with y'all because I think it's important for understanding our leverage is the funding fight that is coming up this month because this is the opportunity to, in real practical terms, start to rein in ICE. This is not symbolic. I want to be clear. This is not symbolic. This is not tilting at windmills. This is not asking Democrats to do something they have no power to do. This is asking Democrats to unify and use leverage they have. So with that, I want to give everybody on this call, I want us all strategically and tactically aligned on what the play is right now for making impact right now. To do that, brief history, y'all. Brief history. Funding bills in the US Congress are weird in a specific way. They're weird because they require 60 votes to get through. They require 60 votes to get through the Senate. So they're similar to other pieces of legislation to go through that goes through the Senate, requiring 60 votes. That's what gives Democrats leverage in this moment. I want to be very clear. That is why this is different. In the House, same old, same old. You got to get a majority. Maybe you can peel off some Republicans, same as anything else. In the Senate, 60 votes, which means because there are 53 Republicans, you've got power in the minority if you keep your caucus together. So keep that in your head. That's a key piece of the understanding of the strategy and tactics to come. Knowing that, Last year, about a year ago, we knew that a funding cliff was coming in March. Do y'all remember this? That is when we collectively, Indivisible along with a lot of other folks, in response to at the time Elon Musk, you remember that guy, ransacking the federal government, we were asking for real constraints on Elon Musk. And the House actually rallied around that. Hakeem Jeffries, to his credit, rallied around that position. The Senate said that they had some plan, that they were going to push back. Don't you worry, guys. We're going to fight back against this. And then at the very last minute, suddenly, a day before the deadline, Chuck Schumer held a press conference and announced, and never mind, we decided not to do it. We're just going to give the Republicans everything they want. That's how it went down. It was that surrender in March of last year that led the Indivisible movement to call for Chuck Schumer to step down from leadership. It was that moment when we first called for him to step down. 92% of Indivisible leaders in a snap election said, yeah, we got to call for him. That surrender in March set up the next funding fight because what they surrendered was 6 months of funding. So that meant September 30th, there would be another funding cliff and another chance for leverage. But we tried to learn from the loss last time. A key thing that did not happen headed into March was Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer holding a joint press conference well ahead of the deadline where they said, this is the unified Democratic position. Republicans, if you want a funding bill, if you want votes from us, you got to get on board with this. You got to negotiate with us on this. That didn't happen in March, and it wasn't happening in April, May, June, July. We weren't seeing Jeffries and Schumer actually lay out those demands. So Indivisible and others, starting in August, started saying something very simple. State your demands, Democrats. You are the leaders in the House and the Senate. State your demands. Because if you do not state your demands, we played this game before. We know what's going to happen. You're going to surrender at the last moment before there's time for us to rally. So we started applying pressure and directly criticizing Jeffries and Schumer for not stating their demands for Democratic votes. And then you know what happened? After a couple weeks of pressure, y'all, Jeffries and Schumer held a press conference. And they said, hey, these are the Democratic demands. If Republicans want our vote on the September funding bill, they have to reinstate the ACA tax subsidies. And they have to put some constraints on Donald Trump from just treating the federal budget like his own personal piggy bank. Is that everything I wanted? Hell no. That was not the only thing wrong. That was not the only thing I would like to see. But it was a defined ask that Republicans did not want to give. And it demonstrated some strength. And then you know what happened, y'all? You know what happened when we started fighting back? When the Democratic position became unified? We rallied behind Jeffries and Schumer. The rest of the ecosystem rallied behind Jeffries and Schumer. We held the largest protest in American history in the middle of a shutdown for No Kings 2 on October 18th. That was followed by the best election results that I've seen in over a decade because for the first time in God knows how long, the Democrats were aligning on an aggressive strategy to push back against Trump. It was working. We were winning. The wind was at our backs. And then the Senate Democrats surrendered. They gave the Republicans everything they wanted, and we got a new deadline. We got a new deadline. In the surrender, back in November, when they finally relented and they gave the Republicans what they wanted, in that surrender, it set a new deadline, and that deadline was January 30th, 2 weeks roughly from today. Now we're all up to speed. We're up to speed with how we got here with the January 30th deadline. Here's now where we stand with this January 30th deadline. There are many good Democrats who have stated their demands. The entire Congressional Progressive Caucus, made up of 100 plus members, have said, we will not vote for any new ICE funding while this agency is lawlessly running amok all around the country, terrorizing communities and murdering Americans. Is that everything we would want when it comes to ICE or immigration? Hell no, absolutely not. But is it an achievable ask in this moment? Absolutely. Is it something the Republicans want to give us? No. They do not want to give it that. But is it something we can unify around because it's wildly popular? Also, yes, it is. The event that we held on Tuesday included representatives like Maxwell Frost, senators like Chris Van Hollen and Chris Murphy and Ed Markey and Alex Padilla, who all said the same thing. They were saying no money for ICE while this is going on. Again, not everything we want, but a line in the sand, a line in the sand. There are two important figures, y'all, who have not drawn a line in the sand. Those people are Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, and Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate. They have been asked repeatedly by journalists, what are you going to do on ICE funding? What are you going to do on DHS funding? And they say basically nothing. They don't say anything. They dodge, they give you a little BS, but they're not drawing a line in the sand. That is where they are. And I say this not because I'm asking you to go call Jeffries or call Schumer. That's not going to work. This gets to how do we actually affect change here? How do we actually make progress in this moment? Here's what you got to understand about Jeffries and Schumer. They are not going to lead on this. They are weather vanes. They go which way they are blown by their caucus. So they will be responding to what their caucus demands. And the fact that they are not responding now is because some Democrats in the House and the Senate are quietly telling them, we don't want to fight on immigration. We don't want to fight on ICE. We think this is the wrong idea. I disagree with that. You disagree with that. And the Americans who are currently being terrorized in Minnesota and elsewhere disagree with that. But if we want to shift them, we've got to focus on our own elected officials and say broadly two things. One, state your damn demands now. Don't wait for 2 weeks from now. Now. Go and schedule that press conference where Democrats, as a unified opposition party, say, this is what we want to see on ICE. State those demands, and we have some ideas of what those demands could be. It's not rocket science, y'all. Stop allowing Border Patrol to deploy to our cities where we don't want them. Stop ICE from conducting dragnet arrests and targeting people based on race. Stop allowing DHS to just magically take money from one place and put it into detention camps. This is all wildly popular stuff that would meaningfully constrain ICE in the short term, at least. If you have other ideas, Jeffries and Schumer, I'm all ears. But I don't know what you stand for because you're dodging and you're refusing to state those demands. So, number one, state your demands. Number two, make them clear. Tell us what that line in the sand is. In the midst of all of this, while Democrats are out there not really unifying on this issue, Donald Trump is saying he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. He is all but promising to do it. So we're facing a very real possibility over the next 2 weeks that Donald Trump sends the 101st Airborne or nationalizes the Guard in order to terrorize Minnesotan communities even more, while Jeffries and Schumer lead the Democrats to vote for yet more billions for ICE. Without intervention, that is the current state of play. We can shift this, but we can't fall for this trick that they pulled back in March. We have to push. This is not about hating on Jeffries or Schumer. We demonstrated back in September when they name a position, we're there. We back them up, and I'm ready to do that. But we cannot wait for them to lead on this. So this is why now we're actually getting, I'm sorry for the wind up, and we're going to get to the questions. This is where we get to what do we do together right now? 2 action items for you. 2 action items. 1, we are co-hosting a movement-wide call-in day today, literally today. So the goal is to give Congress, especially Democratic members of the House and Senate, but call anybody if they're your rep or senator, give them the sense that people are pissed off everywhere and that they are watching, that they're not going to fall for BS excuses, but that we understand the leverage they have and we expect them to use it. We'll link to the call script. We've got a brief on it. You do not have to be an expert in immigration policy. You don't have to be an expert in appropriations process or funding process. Don't worry about that. You just have to be a constituent. That's your power. That's where your credibility comes from. If you've got some time on your hands, don't just call. Get a group of people together. Maybe your Indivisible group, maybe your 5051 group, and make a plan to go, especially to your Senate district office. They've got them all over the state. Your senators, they've got district offices all over the state. Make a plan to go visit and make a point of pushing. So that's step 1, is putting pressure on them right now, not later, but now, and asking them to put pressure on Schumer and Jeffries to come out publicly. And second, this is something that we're doing movement-wide. Right after this What's the Plan call, we're going to be sending out one of our surveys. We took a little bit of a hiatus on doing surveys over the break. We're back. We're putting out a survey for a specific reason. We want to send a clear, unified message to Democratic leadership in the House and Senate. So the survey I'm going to be sending out to y'all asks for what do you want them to do and what message do you want us to send Democratic leadership. We will take those thousands of replies. We will collate them and we will send them on to try to give a sense of exactly how big of a deal this is. Remember, politicians follow their constituents. They're all looking left and right, trying to figure out how pissed off are people right now. Are they just a little bit pissed off or are they really pissed off? And if they're like, oh shit, people are really pissed off, maybe we've got to do something, they might do something. That's where we want them. Okay, I'm sorry. I know that was a lot, but this is an important and it's a moment filled with opportunity, actually. This is not, we're screwed, guys. Let's just go home. That's not where we are. This is a live fight. I'm not going to act as if we've got it in the bag. I don't know if we're going to be able to move Schumer and Jeffries, but I know unless we move Democratic caucus members, we're not going to move them. So when you're calling your rep or your senator, what you are looking for is a public statement that they will not vote for ICE funding in this funding bill. They will not vote for it. That's what you're looking for. And you want them to tell you, and I'm going to push Democratic leadership on this too. Okay. Leah, anything more there? Or should we go to questions?
Let's go to questions.
Okay, we're going to questions, y'all. Laura with the top voted question, how can we protect free and fair elections in November? What are things we can do now? Are there specific groups you recommend we support? Group leader, our community, Indivisible. My members have been asking me, and I want to know the answer. It's a good question also because Trump literally today was talking about how we shouldn't even have midterm elections. You're going to hear a lot more of that kind of statement from Trump in the weeks and months leading up to the election as he knows he's going to lose.
That's right. And I think the first piece of that I want to name is that we're going to shut down kind of election defeatism, right? Because when Donald Trump does that, part of what he's trying to do is scare you into thinking that that's like a real prospect. Donald Trump cannot cancel the midterms. They are run by states and localities. He does not have the power to do that.
Right.
If he tries, a large number of people are going to be like, no, and they're going to go for it. You know, so like there are many things we are worried about, but the first thing we're going to do is not give him powers that he does not actually have. Now, the way we're thinking about this over the course of the year is there's going to be a lot of different efforts by Trump, by organized MAGA, by state and local actors to subvert and rig the rules of the election up front. Everything from voter suppression to gerrymandering, continuing the gerrymandering campaigns that we saw last year. If the Supreme Court rules against the remaining provisions of the VRA and the coalesce decision, which we're expecting any week now, that could kick off another round of gerrymandering as southern states attempt to go after safe seats that have been held for black or brown political districts. So we're monitoring that. There's a potential entire set of fights around trying to preserve those districts and push back against partisan gerrymandering there. Ongoing effort at like local levels in places where you have a shady, county clerk or an election denier in a key local office, like rapid response pushback in places where we're going to see shenanigans. So there's just going to be kind of an ongoing campaign of whack-a-mole across the country as different actors attempt to subvert or rig the rules in order to shape the electorate and shape the conditions in which the election takes place. Some of that's going to be in localities. Some of that's going to be stuff like Donald Trump coming out with an EO about mail-in voting and us trying to push back on all of the places to make sure that it's not implemented in those places. We will not be able to predict every twist and turn, but what we know is that there's going to be an active campaign for Indivisible, and we're also going to be working on building out specific places that we understand to be at higher risk, ways to make sure that folks can get involved locally. I am not sure. I can't give you more details on that, but I can tell you that we're working very hard on it, and you should stay tuned because it's coming. In terms of the arc of the year, though, so there's the whack-a-mole period, right? There's just consistently looking and being ready and pushing back on anything that happens in order to try to rig the rules. Then, as we get closer to the election, we fully expect an escalation in shenanigans. This is what Ezra's talking about, right? Like Donald Trump knows he's going to lose. His inner circle knows he's going to lose a free and fair election. These are not people who intend to, say, oh, I've been chastened by the voters. I guess I'll trim my sails and be, kind of calm for the rest of my term. That's not how they're going to do this. They're going to pull out every trick in the book. They're going to escalate. They're going to create additional conflict. They're going to try to find excuses to send in the National Guard, invoke the Insurrection Act, et cetera,
we've got to be kind of on high alert so that while we're doing our traditional voter get out the vote work, we're also prepared to mobilize, to organize, to disrupt, to push back if we see that kind of large scale effort at sabotage. And then finally, following the results, what we anticipate is they're going to be doing all this stuff in order to kind of kick up the grounds for a whole raft of baseless legal challenges that are designed to be the pretext for them to essentially accept the results that they like and reject the results that they don't. And so after the election, we've also got to be prepared to enforce the results, essentially, to enforce the free and fair election results and make sure that every voter's every voter's vote is actually counted and translates into political power. And again, that might look like mobilization, that may look like, broader cross movement cooperation. We're going to be building out plans for that throughout the year. In terms of organizations to support, I will say All Voting is Local has been a really crucial partner for a lot of folks in different localities. I know many indivisible groups have worked with them directly around this kind of nexus of election sabotage and subversion. There's also a lot of civic engagement and voting rights groups that we're going to be working on with on some of this gerrymandering, and we will be happy to share additional ones that we would recommend supporting as we go through that process.
Hmm. Great question. Okay, Anne's up. Ralph Nader published an op-ed in Common Dreams this week suggesting that our four living ex-presidents must band together to save the republic. He suggests that they collectively they can change the public discord by unified truth-telling. Some suggestions here that they raise some money, do some media, get some money attention, and he recommends that we send petitions, letters, emails, satiric cartoons, or whatever communication to prompt their collective action. Is this an idea Indivisible movement can support and amplify? I will say, if there's one person that the four ex-presidents are likely to listen to less than Ralph Nader, I don't know who that is. And that's not a knock on them as much as it is just this is real talk that they're not going to listen to him. They could listen to you. It's true. If there was like overwhelming demand for the Democratic presidents and Republican presidents to actually move forward, they might move. I will say I've been pretty disappointed in the level of engagement of former presidents and actually rallying the troops. And I do think, in theory, there could be all of them coming together to push. I'm not, Leah and we haven't discussed this. Maybe we disagree.
This is a reaction in real
This is
time
reaction
kind of
real
question.
So, and my reaction in real time is like, maybe you could get them over to like listen if there was a big overwhelming drive. I'm not convinced that that is as impactful as, for instance, I don't know, rallying behind Democrats like Chris Van Hollen or Chris Murphy or an Alex Padilla who are fighting this fight right now. I mean, they have a vote in the next 2 weeks on whether or not ICE gets funded. That's direct. That's right now. If we get George W. Bush to do a high five with Barack Obama, does suddenly that unlock something for us? I don't think it's nothing, but it's not a direct line between here and ICE funding. Leah, disagree with me.
Yeah, I agree with you mostly. I mean, I guess what I'd say is I don't think this is not a place I'd recommend investing the kind of energy that's recommended here, like letter campaigns, petitioning, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would be moderately useful if the ex-presidents could present a united front around this stuff. And I'm, looking specifically at George W. Bush, who is the one who is
He's painting a lot.
somehow worse than Dick Cheney on this specific topic, and both of them quite bad on everything else. But the reality is, a lot of the people that we're trying to reach right now, our biggest challenge is not necessarily that they need to see a cross-partisan demonstration from former presidents. It's that they're kind of checked out of the political system more broadly. They don't trust politics. They don't trust either party. They think this is all kind of partisan bickering, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't really have much faith in their own agency to affect the system. And so I'm not convinced that getting together, and that's particularly true when we're thinking about young people. I'm not convinced that the key to breaking through with people that we're not already breaking through with is getting together a set of folks who functionally, by virtue of being ex-presidents, represent the core of the political establishment. I think it would be nice. I also just don't think it's like high on my list of asks.
See, you get real time
Yeah.
takes on this, but please keep on bringing up tactics. We're happy to engage and give our thoughts. And if you strongly disagree, that's okay. We don't actually all have to agree on tactics to move forward together. One of the things I like to see is people who feel really passionately about a particular tactic, try it out. Maybe it gets some traction, maybe it works, and then we're like, hey, we were wrong. We should amplify this, and that's cool. I'm not wed to any tactics. If something is working, great. Let's double down on it. Okay, Greg has a question. Some of our allies from out of state and some of our not allies locally, like our mayor here in Plymouth, are asking us Minnesotans to, quote, take down the rhetoric and, quote, stop yelling at ICE in order to avoid Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. Should we start protesting silently, just giving them a stern look, which we are good at, as you know? I do know that, Minnesotans. Or can we keep yelling and blowing whistles? I'm going to remind everybody of the line from Becca Good's statement on Renee Good. She said, this is Renee Good's wife, Becca. We had whistles, they had guns. For the love of God, do not put down your whistles, y'all. For the love of God, do not listen to politicians, whether they're independents or Republicans or Democrats, who tell you that now is the time to be quiet. Now is not the time to exercise your First Amendment rights. Those folks may mean well. I'm not saying that they don't, but I think they are tragically misguided about the moment that we're in. We need millions of more whistles in the streets. Make noise. Now is absolutely the time to make noise. What you do will have no bearing on whether Donald Trump invokes the Insurrection Act or not. He is a bully who will push as far as we allow him to push. And the best way to encourage more violent overreach from this regime is to lay down and take it and say, okay, we'll accept this. The best way to stop it is to stand up peacefully, non-violently, but in force. And exercising your First Amendment rights means saying whatever the hell you want and using whistles if need be to get the attention of your neighbors who are under threat. So I'm sorry to the mayor of Plymouth. Might be a good person. You might have the best interests of your community at heart. And also, I think this is a strategic misstep to a historic degree.
Yeah, firm agree. And I will just share, so we made this call for national vigils in response to Renee's killing. And what we found, what we had happened at that moment was we did get a little pushback along these lines. And the pushback was essentially some version of, ICE is like these are violent, unaccountable, out of control forces. Don't you need to like pull people back in order to avoid them hurting more people? And our response is if you are not willing to use your First Amendment rights for fear of violence, they have functionally taken your First Amendment rights. The only way you can respond to an active, horrific political violence that is designed to suppress dissent is by ensuring that backfires for them, by ensuring that there are 10 times as more people out the next day. That is what we have collectively been doing over the last week. That is what the folks in Minneapolis have been heroically doing over an extended period of time. It is simply never going to be the answer to give the bully what he wants and hope that things work out for the best.
And I just want to underline, if Trump does indeed invoke the Insurrection Act, I hope the next day there are double the number of people out, protecting their community members, showing up with whistles, organizing together, and making clear that we're not going to just accept this authoritarian overreach. That is the only way to effectively push back. And we'll be right there wherever we can. I also want to be clear, this is happening in Minnesota. There are a lot of the attention is in Minnesota. This is not just in Minnesota. What Trump is doing now is what he's been doing for the last year, which is testing the limits of his power. He is systematically trying to see how much pushback do I get. And if the people of Minnesota just lay down and say, well, he's invoked the Insurrection Act, I guess we just all go home and allow him to terrorize our communities without any opposition. He's going on to Maine. He's going on to California. He's going on to Texas. He's going on to you name it. That he is going to go to community after community. The way to push back is to organize, again, nonviolently, but forcefully, standing up for our First Amendment rights.
And you won't be alone in that because
That's right.
I want to be really clear. Like the country is watching Minnesota. People are being inspired by what they are seeing in the Twin Cities. They are seeing solidarity in action in a real and powerful way. And that is seeding resistance everywhere else in the country.
Molly, actually quoting Becca Good as well, what are we actually supposed to do about ICE now that we know they will use fatal force against innocent people? As Renee Good's wife said in her statement, we have whistles, they have guns, is recording them on phones and reporting them effective in any way at this point. I've been talking a lot, Leah. You want to take this?
Yeah. So I actually want to like take a step back and talk about some training that we've done in the past and some of the thinking that guides us when you have something like this horrific murder. when you have an act of horrible political violence that is very clearly intended to suppress dissent. Because this is like a tool, this is a tool that regimes use sometimes, right? The like a killing of a protester, a killing of an observer, and very intentionally and clearly squatting up to protect the perpetrator and the murderer. That's intended to suppress dissent. That is intended to make the next wave of people more scared to go out and observe, to exercise their constitutional rights, to use their freedom of speech. That's the goal. Our goal is to make that backfire. It is to ensure that because this has happened, more people understand that ICE is wildly out of control and terrorizing communities. More people understand that they personally might be at risk, or their family or someone they love might be at risk because of this lawless, massed agency running around, and to ensure that more people are funneled into action. What we want is for ICE and CBP and the Trump administration, when they look back on this period, to say, wow, that was a huge mistake we made.
Yep.
Because if the lesson they take from this is there was a killing of an innocent woman who stopped to help her neighbors, and that led to less protest, less pushback, ICE more able to do their jobs, that is an incredibly dangerous message for them to take. That is the opposite of what we need them to take from us. So it is absolutely the case that you should continue to record, you should continue to observe. Again, if you have not gotten a Know Your Rights training, get a Know Your Rights training. Those are not just for people who are directly impacted, or, we're actually all a little bit at this point directly threatened by us, but that's not just for people who are concerned about their immigration status, putting them at risk. It's for everyone in order to know what you do if you interact with ICE as a bystander, and it can be different depending on where you are. So you should definitely do that training with a local organization that is can give you good advice. Get trained, get involved. We need to make this backfire by ensuring that there are vastly more people who are out in the streets, who are doing that recording, who are preserving that evidence. As Governor Walz literally implored people in Minneapolis earlier today, record this so that we can prosecute people for their crimes.
Yeah.
Is it going to be tomorrow? We don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, but we need to actually build the record that leads to large scale accountability for this process.
I think it is worth saying, just because this is this is the level of risk that we are willing to take on, and this is the level of risk that some people are going to be able to take on. Somebody posted in the chat that On Tyranny, for folks who haven't read, full of instructive lessons. Rule number 20 is be as courageous as you can. Not everybody is going to do everything, and that's okay. I don't want people taking on risks that they're not aware of, and I don't want to sit here and tell you, no, don't worry about it. Totally going to be fine. I mean, we've got an authoritarian regime that is actively menacing our Americans all over the country. I can't tell you everything's going to be fine. What I can tell you is our chance of pushing back against this lies with a lot of people deciding that they're going to take on a lot of risk to protect themselves and each other together. That's the only pathway out of this. And every one of you who decides to stand up and take on risk, it's not just you doing that, because there are 20 different eyes on you watching you do that. And those eyes are taking in the courage that you were demonstrating. And that courage is contagious. We don't just say that. That's not just a bumper sticker. People are watching that, and then more people will stand up as a result. I'm not telling you, everyone on this call, you've got to do that, therefore. I'm not telling you that it's going to be fine if you do. I don't want to just reassure you in that way. What I'm telling you is this is the effective way to actually accomplish our shared goals together. And we're going to need a lot more people in the coming months to decide to be the ones to stand up if we're going to win. Sam, direct action, civil disobedience will be required in the coming months. What role will Indivisible play in providing training and coordination? Sam from Indivisible Action, Southeast North Carolina. What can we say on? So we have engaged in civil disobedience in the past. Leah and I have both been arrested, both actually in the first Trump term and in the Biden term. We were both arrested pushing back against various things that they were doing. Leah, are we prepared to state what we can provide on this?
So here's what I would say on this. Civil disobedience is a lot of different things, and it can it's a category that includes a really broad set of tactics, and it's really hard for me to talk about it as an entire category because it includes such an extraordinarily broad set of tactics, and because you employ those tactics as part of an overarching strategy. So I think we should understand it not as kind of like this category or that category, but what is our collective strategy to build a mass mobilization and disruption movement that is capable of pushing back against the Trump administration, then is capable of creating consequences for, the collaborators such that we actually generate the pressure to check what they're doing. This is not a direct answer to exactly what we're going to do, and that is because I want to give you a more clear answer on specifics than I can on this call today. But what I will say is that we're heartily aware that they are escalating in unprecedented ways, and that our response can't only incorporate mobilization in the form that we have been practicing it so far.
Yep. Suzanne Brockman asks, how do we get our Dem members of Congress to listen to us? How effective are threats to primary them? I've started shouting when I call, but that feels useless. Should we demand they go to Minneapolis to see ICE firsthand? I love a practical question like this, Suzanne. I think it's the right question because we are not here just to have the right opinions. We're not here just to be right. I don't particularly care about being right. I want to win. I want to unify the Democratic opposition, and that means trying to figure out how can we actually accomplish what we're trying to do together. One thing, just a little piece of feedback, I would not recommend yelling when you call your member of Congress. Yelling, Leah and I have both answered phones for members of Congress. If you get a yeller, often that yeller will not have their comment actually recorded. And your opinion goes just as far if you're just nice as can be, Minnesota nice, to that member of Congress and saying, I've seen that you voted on a resolution last year, Angie Craig, thanking ICE for their service to our country. And Angie Craig, you voted for Lake and Riley. That's really disappointing. Are you going to refuse to vote for any funding for ICE in the next 2 weeks? Please give me a response. Here's my number. I'm a constituent. Just an example. Angie Craig pulled out of a hat. But being nice actually is good, is a good tactic, I would encourage you. How effective are primaries? The question is, how real is the primary challenge? How much of an electoral threat are you really? Are you organizing? Is it just you yelling into the wind? Or are you organizing a sufficient number of people out to say very clearly, this is a make or break it moment for me? Either you vote against additional ICE funding in the next 2 weeks, or my group of people, and I've got X number, we are rallying behind this challenger who is waiting in the wings or who is already in. You can make a threat. The question is, do you have the goods to back it up? Because a threat on its own, where you don't actually have the political power, you haven't done the organizing, they will see that and they say, I'm not worried about that. So it is effective if it is real, So this is why I would highly encourage folks to engage in primaries in this moment, both to back good Democrats who are standing up in this moment and to make clear to the 100 or so House Democrats who currently represent safe Democratic districts that we don't need them in Congress if they're not going to represent us. And we do have other options. There are people who will fight back. So highly encourage you to, yes, please advocate, but not just by yourself, with others. Do it respectfully, but be insistent, ask for a response, and do it in a couple different ways. Calls are nice. Showing up is even better. An op-ed is great. Getting a lot of people together to express your opinion, best. It's the best. It's hard to manufacture that. And so it's real and it has impact. And then beyond that, the electoral threat, if well organized, is indeed real. You're going to see indivisibles at the local level endorsing primary challengers and people in open primaries in the coming weeks. You'll see Indivisible National partnering with them to do that as well. I do think that's the way we build a Democratic Party that actually fights, and that's what we want. Leah, any thoughts from, as somebody who's answered a lot of phones in a Democratic member of Congress's office?
I've just been also like, look, the staffers are human beings. They have the normal reactions that humans have to being yelled at. And it's not more effective. I think in my office, the rule was if someone started swearing, you got to hang up on them. Different offices have different rules for kind of like how disruptive you have to be before they just kind of discard your feedback entirely. But in general, you're going to be heard more by just being, chill.
Yep.
But insistent.
Chill and insistent. And request a callback or a message back. And if you don't hear, you can call back and be like, hey, I called a couple days ago, haven't heard back from you, and haven't seen a public statement from the Congresswoman or the senator.
Yeah.
Robin asks, since the Insurrection Act is being thrown around and the threats of no more elections, what do we do? I see a civil war coming and it's not going to be pretty. Honestly, I'm fucking scared. Calls to our representatives just aren't working. Couple things, Robin. I think that the phrase insurrection act gets thrown around and I see this in social media sometimes and in some circles is like, that's the end of the republic. That's a civil war when it happens. It's game over. I want to be really clear. The Insurrection Act is a act of Congress that was passed that gives the president a specific kind of power. It does not make the president king. It's not like Trump says, I declare insurrection, and suddenly he is king. That is not how it works. It is a narrow but real amount of power that is bad, is unprecedented in this moment, but is not game over for democracy. Oh no, it's over. What it allows the president to do is to send in, it could be the 101st Airborne, it could be the National Guard, send them into a state to enforce federal laws inside the state.
Not
Inside
a
the
blank
state.
check.
It is not a blank check. It is not, you can do whatever the hell you want. It is bad, to be clear. What this could look like would be military, possibly accompanying ICE agents door to door, or trying to disperse crowds, or arresting civilians. It could look like that. But I want to be clear, it does not mean anybody in this country no longer has their First Amendment rights. Put that out of your mind. That's what they want you to think, that they've invoked the Insurrection Act, therefore I have no First Amendment rights. No. In fact, it is so important that we respond to any invocation of the Insurrection Act with overwhelming, peaceful, but insistent displays of our First Amendment rights. Because if we do not show up in that moment, we don't got them, y'all. We do not have those rights. It means Trump will bully us in Minnesota. He'll bully us in New York. He'll bully us in Austin. He'll bully us in San Francisco. He'll bully us in Tallahassee. He will go from place to place saying, Insurrection Act, Insurrection Act, Insurrection Act. Don't show up against me. And we cannot allow him to believe he has that power because he doesn't have that power unless we give it to him by refusing to protect our rights.
That 100%. I also just want to respond to kind of the overall emotion in your comment, Robin, because like what I'm hearing is you're really scared. And what I want you to understand is they're not doing any of this right now because they are strong. They are doing this because they're freaking out and spinning out. Like they don't know what's going. They have spent all of the political capital that they came in with. Trump's approvals are in the toilet. They're in the toilet across the board, including on immigration, where he's sunk visibly over the last week.
And on ice.
And on ice. And on ice. Yeah. When you are looking at this, what you need to understand is this is not the sign of a successfully consolidating authoritarian regime. This is the sign of people who have failed to consolidate power, who are frantically like pushing all of the buttons to try to figure out some way to escalate in order to, seize the initiative back because they understand that they are flailing. So I think it's really important that we ground what comes next because we fully expect them to continue to try to do escalatory, frightening things. We need to ground that in the fact that they are not doing this because they are strong. They are doing this because they know that their plan is flailing and they are trying to throw a Hail Mary pass.
Leah, using a sports metaphor, you know it's serious.
I don't know where a Hail Mary pass goes. That is definitely about football. I'm pretty sure it's about football, but nonetheless.
Okay, Robin. Okay, we answered Robin's question. David, what is Indivisible's position about the January 20th Free America walkout thing? Oh, we were talking about this, Leah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is so the Women's March is doing a walk out of your schools, walk out of your office on January 20th. There's a whole set of actions around the country that are happening that it's totally great if folks want to do them. We did not sign on as a formal national organization, not because we're not supportive of more and different and like creative forms of action, but just because we have some like hard limitations on our ability to go in all in on different things at the same time. We felt like we needed to have capacity for stuff like the mobilizations and the vigils on that we did last weekend. If we're going to go all in on something, we try to go all in on it, like, and really commit. And that does require some prioritization. And so this goes in the category of like fully supportive. Lots of people should try different things. Really excited for everybody who participates. We just didn't have the capacity to go in on a national level ourselves.
Unfortunately, we are living in an era where we are forced to choose between priorities because of simple lack of capacity that we cannot burn our team out doing everything all the time because then we will have no team to pull off No Kings 3 and No Kings 4 and to
Yeah.
pull off other advocacies. So no shade to the folks who are doing that and fully support letting folks figure out what makes sense for them. If you've got the gas in the tank for this, by all means.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, John asks, yeah, No Kings 3, you say. Indeed, folks, I will say, I keep on. We are going to announce, y'all are going to be among the first folks to know as soon as we're able to announce No Kings 3. I am chomping at the bit. You have no idea. We're going to get there. We're going to get an announcement very soon, but we're not there today. And frankly, if on the day that we are there, you will know before the Q&A. You aren't going to have to ask. I will be shouting it from the rooftops and from
Right.
whoever will listen to me.
We're going to hear a lot about
You
it,
will.
guys.
It is coming. John asks, or this is more of a statement from John. I think John's pulling out a couple good points here, though, that Minneapolis shows us that we have big tactical advantages over Trump and ICE, which is our ability to gather groups of disciplined protesters in big cities, which mostly turn blue. I think there are some good insights here. Three things that John is bringing out. Organization, the fact that we're able to pull a dozen people out pretty quickly and show up, that actually hinders ICE because ICE is largely trying to bully people into doing things that they don't actually have to do. And they're easily scared off because they're bullies. And so when they see a lot of people out there
Yeah.
who are exercising their rights, then they're like, oh, well, let's go pick on the weaker person who we can get. That's how it's working. So agree, organization is one. Two, discipline. The nonviolence of the Minnesotans is impressive and crucial. Could not agree more. Basically, every piece of news coming out of Minnesota where you see it, you see the ICE agents behaving violently and indiscriminate in how they are targeting Minnesotans, which is appalling. And you see Minnesotans being neighbors. That's what you see. You see them being good neighbors. And I gotta say, I'm so freaking inspired by the Minnesotans. Leah and I both went to school in Minnesota, Paul Wellstone's college in Carlton. Minnesotans, I think people think that Minnesota nice just means there are pushovers. That's not what Minnesota nice means. That's not, we're seeing what Minnesota nice means right now, y'all.
That's right.
And then bringing your cameras and your whistles, 1,000%. Creating these viral videos. We used to say when we first started Indivisible, we had a rule: pictures or it didn't happen.
That's right.
Now I would say video or it didn't happen. The goal is both to collect this documentation for the public to see. Something like 80, 90% of the US population, adult population, has seen the video, of Renee Good. That's horrific, but it's also important for pulling people over to our side so people understand exactly what's going on. And as we heard from Governor Walz, it's going to be important for prosecutions as well. I want those ICE agents thinking, oh shit, I might face state prosecution if I break the law here. That's a good thought for them to have in their mind, because if they have that in their mind, some number of them will do some number of fewer bad things while they are terrorizing communities. So agree with all those takeaways, Sean.
I will just add one more point. One of the reasons why they keep, when you see them sending new folks into one city or sending them into another city, they're pulling people out of one city and sending them on to the next. And part of the reason is they don't actually have enough people to do this in a lot of locations at one time, right? Like they have surged an enormous number of ICE and CBP folks into the Twin Cities, into Minneapolis. They do not have the capacity to do that in 5 cities at the same time. They do not have the capacity to actually handle it when there is this level of organization in a city of determined neighbors. And so as we, again, continue to understand both that they are incredibly dangerous, that they are incredibly harmful, that they are traumatizing an entire city and state entirely for Trump's political purposes, and also there are limits to what they are capable of, right? Like they are doing this in order to have a propaganda victory. They are doing this in order to demonstrate that Trump can do this to an American city. They are not actually capable of doing this in a number of places at the same time, nor are they capable of achieving their stated objectives if there is real effective organizing in that place.
That's right. Y'all, we're running out of time, but this is a good question. What can we do for Minneapolis from other states? Asks Wendy. I have a couple ideas, Leah, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, so a couple things. So one, send money to the folks who are on the ground who are doing this work. We will drop in the chat a set of immigrant rights and organizing actors who are on the ground leading really important work and who are doing it in the worst possible circumstances right now. So we'll put those links in the chat. That's just an immediate, very tangible way to send support. On the federal level, I think what we have heard from folks is really a desire to amplify what is happening, to raise the temperature for your own elected officials, right? Why on earth are we in a situation where Democrats are considering increasing ICE's budget while ICE invades an American city? That is the question that every elected official should be answering here. Ezra, is that the question that you were going to ask?
Uh, I I think that is so. I was going to say two things. One of which
Yeah.
was our action item,
Yeah.
which is: do you want ICE to stop terrorizing Minneapolis? Get Democrats to cut off funding for ICE. Full stop. Your representative, your senator in New York, in California, in Florida, you name it, they are going to vote on this about whether we are going to give more money to ICE to do what they're doing in Minneapolis. Not next year, not after the presidential election, in the next 2 weeks. We can affect this, but we need a unified Democratic opposition. I don't care if you've got a centrist Democrat or a corporate Democrat or a lefty Democrat. This is not ideological, y'all. This is not about left versus the right. This is about, are we fighting back for our democracy and our neighbors, or are we wed to an old version of politics where we think, well, we'll probably just win the midterms and it'll be fine after that. I I I can think of a big tent party that can accept a lot of different forms of, this is what I think about taxes or education or healthcare. Our big tent party does not have to accept cowards in this moment. We can win a majority in the Congress. We can win the presidency without accepting these cowards who cater to fascists. So that's now. That's now. We've got the action items. Highly encourage you to do that. But the other thing, unfortunately, Wendy, not to turn this back on you, uh, this is not just Minneapolis under threat. If you think this is a Minneapolis problem, unfortunately, you've got another thing coming. They are hiring Proud Boys by the thousands. They are building detention camps all over. They are acquiring guns and they are acquiring vehicles and planes. The money that they have passed through the big ugly bill is flowing down. Not all of it has flowed down yet. One of the reasons why they haven't come to your city yet is because they haven't had the staff. They are staffing up. So one of the best things you can do, in addition to pushing your federal representatives to rein in ICE for Minneapolis, is to replicate what Minneapolis is doing in your own community. Start setting up these rapid response networks. Start getting together task forces that monitor what ICE is doing and start pushing your local and state elected officials to actually pass state level restrictions and local level restrictions on ICE's terror campaign. That's going to help Minneapolis, and that's going to help members of your own community too. We covered the action items.
There is nowhere in this country that you cannot do something to move the ball forward here.
That's right. Uh, y'all, this was a little bit of a more emotional, what's the plan than normal? But Leah's got inspiring closing comments that are going to send us on our way.
I was actually just going to answer Robert's question before we close out because it actually contains one additional action item.
Okay.
Do you want to read Robert's question?
Okay. Robert asks, Robert from CBFD Indivisible, never misses CBFD and Indivisible. You are getting questions every time. That's in San Diego. What more can we do to push Congress to rein in the heinous activities of ICE, Border Patrol, and the rest of the Gestapo? I saw the call to action and contact our senators and representatives in connection with the next budget showdown, but can we arrange phone banks to reach out to states with weak-willed Democratic senators in order to push for no ICE or no deal? Other ideas?
This is a great question. We actually are going to be doing phone banks to states where we need to reach those senators. And and I see that Misty has put that in the chat. Join our phone bank on Wednesday. We are going to be calling potential constituents in the states of senators that we need to push on this. So thank you, Robert. We did not plant that question. Robert is from an actual Indivisible group, but it is in fact something that we are going to be doing and that we would love to have you join for coming up next week.
Look out for the email to follow up on this. Please give me a message to send to Senate and House Democratic leadership in the survey. Tomorrow, we are announcing What's the Plan podcast, which will then have its first episode out a week from tomorrow. We are still here every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, to talk about what we can practically do to actually fight for our democracy and push back against this fascism that we're seeing from the White House and from their henchmen. Leah, is that the plan?
That's the plan.
That's the plan, y'all. We will see y'all next week. Thank you so much. So proud to be in this movement with y'all.